With the Prius finally becoming sexy, it was only a matter of time until Honda responded, and that's exactly what they've done with the Civic. This is the most powerful non-Type R Civic they've ever produced, and one of the most efficient with around 50 miles per gallon. The easiest way for me to show you around is just to grab the camera and go for a look around the new Civic. They're all going to get the updated bumpers that you see here, and that includes the non-hybrid model. The LX and the Sport trim of the sedan are going to be available as ICE only. That's basically the same 2-liter engine that we saw before, whereas the Sport model is going to be available with the hybrid system, and Sport Touring gets the hybrid system standard. The changes to the front bumper design are fairly minor, just keeping it a little bit fresh and up to date with the rest of the lineup. If you get the hybrid models, you'll notice that we have the body-colored little brow right there. We have basically the same headlight design as before. That's a full LED reflector design. And then you can see that the lower portion of the bumper has been changed ever so slightly, and then we have the body-colored lower lip right there as well. We get new tires and new wheels on this model. These are really elegant design. This is going to be in just the Sport Touring model, both for the hatchback and the sedan. We also have functional air curtains right there up front. Now, yes, you heard that right. There is going to be a hatchback and a sedan hybrid in the Civic lineup. And that means, obviously, this is not just going to be a Prius competitor, but a very direct competitor to the Corolla hybrid and the Elantra hybrid. But the positioning is a little bit different. This is certainly going to be positioned more as a premium model. And to be honest, that makes a lot of sense because the Civic has always looked a little bit more elegant and a little bit more restrained as far as its design, especially versus that Hyundai Elantra hybrid. But we're also going to be getting an awful lot more power from this hybrid system. We should probably talk about that first. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you under the hood, but this is basically the same hybrid system that we find in the CR-V hybrid and the Accord hybrid, with some tweaks, of course, for the Civic. So the software programming has been retuned for the smaller format of the vehicle and the performance dynamics that they wanted out of a smaller car like this. We get 200 horsepower and over 230 pound-feet of torque, easily making this more torquey than the Civic Si, but obviously a little bit different in terms of its market positioning. They're not calling this a sporty vehicle like that. They're just calling this basically the replacement for the 1.5-liter turbo. So we get more fuel efficiency and more power. It's really kind of a win-win. At this point in time, we don't have official fuel economy estimates for either of these vehicles, but you can expect them to both be around 50 miles per gallon based on what we see in the Accord. Remember that the Accord is a little bit bigger and a little bit less aerodynamic than these two options here. On the sedan, we're seeing an all-new blue color. This is sort of a dark gray blue, and then of course we get that bright blue still available in the 5-door hatchback there. Going in for a bit of a closer look, let's take a look at the trunk first, because this is one of the areas where we see some other minor changes. We get new taillights with more of a grayed out look, sort of a darker tint there, and you're going to find that in all Civic models. It really makes it a little bit fresher, a little bit more modern. Obviously, we have the hybrid badging right there, and then in the back, we have one exhaust tip tucked up right over there on the passenger side, and that gives us a really clean look in the back. Going in to the trunk, if we just pop that open, you'll notice we get the exact same trunk that we find in the non-hybrid model. Definitely a big advantage. If we lift the load floor, you'll notice we also have a place where you could put a spare tire if you wanted to. Obviously, Honda is saving weight with the can of Fix-A-Flat there and the tire inflator kit. We also get a little bit more storage space. So this does give you the flexibility of deciding if you want to do that yourself aftermarket or just go with the extra storage capacity because we don't have that spare there. Now that's possible because the battery pack essentially lives under the rear seats. This generation of Civic was designed from the ground up to accommodate Honda's hybrid system, and that's why we see the great packaging efficiency in the vehicle. Unfortunately, it did take a little bit of time for it to actually come to North America. Moving over here to the hatchback, we of course get that hatchback profile that people have definitely been a fan of. I like the smoothness of the design here, the way that they've integrated those hinges for the hatch right there into the roofline. I know that if I were going to get a Civic, I would probably buy the 5-door model. Back here we get the same cargo area that we find in the regular model with this slide to the side cargo cover there. Slightly different underfloor design in this one versus the sedan. You notice that we have the tire repair kit right there in that foam divider. Not quite as much room if you wanted to, modify things aftermarket with a spare tire or something like that, but a lot of practical storage capacity. And then of course, if you fold down these rear seats, this is the Civic that could accommodate a barbecue from Home Depot if you just decided to buy one on a random Wednesday. And this is also the Civic that made me mention the Prius. The Prius has never been a natural competitor to the Civic. I would say that's always been the Corolla. But now that we have this large 5-door model, and now that the Prius has really shrunk in terms of its cargo carrying capacity, this is not only a direct competitor in my mind, it's actually a solid upgrade if you want greater cargo carrying capacity versus that Prius. I know a lot of folks have been curious about this, but no, one of the things that customers have been asking for does not happen on the refreshed Civic. We don't get any air vents for the rear seat passengers. We should take a moment and talk about the design of Honda's hybrid system because it's very different than the other hybrids you'll find in this segment. The Honda 2-motor hybrid system is, in essence, a serial hybrid system primarily with a parallel hybrid mode. And that makes this one of the smoothest hybrids available in this segment. And it's going to feel a little bit more like an electric car if that's something you're interested in. If you want a really traditional feel, you want to take a look at the Hyundai hybrid because that has a regular stepped automatic transmission. But it's not going to be as smooth as this. The Hyundai hybrid system, when it's in EV mode or when you're regenerative braking, power has to go back through that dual clutch transmission, so you're going to feel it shifting. In this, it's going to be buttery smooth, exactly like the Accord hybrid. So if you want to know how one of these drives, you can run down to your Honda dealer, drive an Accord hybrid, and then imagine what that would be like in a smaller package. We have a large, powerful electric motor directly connected to the front wheels. So in pretty much any drive mode, it's going to feel very peppy, very torquey because we have that electric motor that's there. We also have the ability to have very smooth regenerative braking because that's the motor that's going to be handling that. Then on the other side, we have the generator that's directly connected to the engine, generating power whenever it needs more oomph than the battery can provide. Then to help improve efficiency, above speeds around 45 miles an hour or so, it can close a clutch pack between the two motors and it can drive as a parallel hybrid down the road. That's probably the mode you're going to be in at speeds of around 55 to 65 miles an hour. Now, as we see in some of the other Honda hybrids, at higher speeds or when you're hill climbing or you want to go even faster, then it's going to decouple that coupling, go back to the serial mode so that way it can give you the most torque on the front axle. This hybrid system has been especially efficient at around town speeds. So think 45 to 55 miles an hour. This is probably going to be well over 50 miles per gallon. If you live in a state where you have really high speeds, so say Texas at 85 miles an hour, you should know that this may be a little bit less efficient than the Elantra or the Corolla hybrid, but those details are still yet to come because we don't have any official EPA estimates yet. Honda won't talk performance or handling figures for the new Sport Touring hybrid, but we can get a little bit of an idea up front. In addition to the unique wheels on this model that are again new for this year, we get 235 40R18 tires. These are relatively low profile and relatively wide for this segment. We don't have the upgraded brakes that you'd find in a Civic Si or something like that, but the tire size definitely leans towards this being one of the better handling models in this segment. You will find significantly narrower tires in that Corolla hybrid or the Elantra. On the inside, we find basically the same interior we found last year in the Civic, which definitely makes this one of the more elegant and I would say one of the more luxurious entries in this segment. The biggest change happens over here in the middle of the dashboard for the Sport Touring model only. I am a little bit sad that the other models don't get this new software. We have an approximately 9-inch color touchscreen system here, and it now features the Google Connected Services system. So we get online Google Mapping. We also get the Google Voice Assistant. Set the temperature to 70 degrees.
Changing the temperature to 70 degrees.
So there we go. You can basically do anything that the Google Assistant would normally be able to do for you, plus control certain vehicle systems, enter navigation destinations, etc. I like the look, and it comes with 3 years of integrated data service as well. After that, you are going to have to pay based on the kind of package that you're interested in as far as what you want the vehicle to support. The home menu, basically the same as we've seen before, so this is sort of a combination of the systems and software that we've seen in Honda vehicles with the additional Google software added on top of it. Obviously, there's going to be a power flow system there. Down below that, we find the same gauge layout and the same dashboard layout that we found in the rest of the Civic lineup before. Dual zone automatic climate control. We have an additional USB port right there in the middle of the dash, so one C port that integrates for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and then one charge-only port there as well. We have a pretty traditional shifter there, drive mode selectors down there at the bottom, and we have regeneration paddles on the back of the steering wheel. That's something that I've really loved from Honda's hybrids and plug-in hybrids in the past, the ability to adjust the throttle lift-off regen using the paddles. There is a little bit of a technical difference between the software programming on this vehicle and the Accord. There are going to be fewer steps of regeneration, and I think that should make it a little bit clearer for some owners. Of course, if you don't want to adjust it, you can just set it and forget it. We also have the full LCD instrument cluster there behind the steering wheel. Now, I know everybody always asks about warning lights on these displays. Keep in mind, this is an early pre-production prototype, so that's why we can't see under the hood, and that's why there are going to be some warning lights on here and there. Over in the Civic hatch that Honda brought along, you can see what the darker interior looks like. Again, the same Google connected infotainment system right there in the dashboard. It's integrated really nicely there with the center channel speaker just behind the display. We get basically the same dashboard layout, but of course we get the additional practicality of that hatchback design in the rear. And in case you're wondering, nope, the rear seats don't get air vents in this model either. Now, when I'm talking about the practicality of the hatch, I'm really referring to cargo practicality because there's not an enormous difference as far as the rear seats go. Right now, I'm back here in the sedan. You can see that if I lean my head back there to the head restraint, my head is touching the ceiling. And if I move over to the hatch, it's much the same thing. We get a skosh more headroom, so if I put my head back there to the head restraint, my head's not exactly touching the ceiling in the same way, but we don't get a huge amount of additional space in the hatch. It's mainly that cargo area in the back where things get better. As of today, Honda has not released official pricing on the 2025 Civic, but they have said they're trying to keep it in line with the 2024 model year. If pricing has been released by the time this video goes live, you'll find that down there in the description section, but the hybrid models should start under $30,000. Honda has said that they see the hybrid system as replacing the 1.5-liter turbo, not creating some sort of new performance entry in the Civic lineup. And I think that was exactly the right way to go. They could very easily have made this the new Civic Si with the kind of power that we find under the hood. They could have put bigger brakes and bigger tires, etc. on it, and a bigger price tag, but they chose not to. Now, on the other hand, Honda did choose to make this more of a premium hybrid entry in this segment. You should expect it to be logically more expensive than a Corolla hybrid. Now, that makes a lot of sense to me because this is a lot nicer than the Corolla hybrid. It looks more expensive, it looks more elegant. The Civic has always been nicer to drive, and the interior is significantly more premium than what we find in the Corolla. The Corolla is definitely getting a little bit old. It's also likely going to be a little bit more expensive perhaps than the Elantra hybrid, with a whole lot more power under the hood. The Elantra hybrid is definitely very efficient, but it's not focused on giving you efficiency with that added level of performance. And again, we're going to get 200 horsepower out of this hybrid system. Basically, it's the same hybrid system borrowed out of the Accord. Honda chose to take perhaps the easier route and just give us all of that power under the hood. They could have given us a smaller engine with smaller electric motors. They chose not to. They chose to just make this parts common with the Accord hybrid. And that does have some long-term benefits. If you're concerned about what happens after 10 years or 15 or 20 years, because they share so much with the Accord hybrid and the CR-V hybrid, it's logically going to make repairs and maintenance less expensive in the long term because there's simply going to be more of these hybrids out on the road. And that's again exactly how they structured this vehicle. In the sedan model, you're going to find the hybrid system available on the Sport trim, standard on Sport Touring, and over here in the 5-door, you're going to find it on the Sport Touring trim. Now, if there's one thing I could ask for in a Civic refresh, it would be rear seat air vents. Those do exist in other markets for the Civic, so it should be pretty easy to jam those on the North American model. But this is something that other car companies have been doing as well. Honda is by no means alone in deleting rear seat air vents to help save a little bit of money and help keep prices a little lower. Let me know what you think of the new Civic Hybrid down there in the comment section below, and what are your performance and fuel economy expectations or predictions? Honda will not say whether this is slower or faster 0 to 60 than a Civic Si, but my personal expectation is this is probably going to be swifter 0 to 60. It's not going to handle like one, it's not going to brake like one, but if you're looking for a really quick Civic that gets really fantastic fuel economy, you should definitely take a look at either of these models. And whether you're shopping for an Elantra or a Corolla hybrid, definitely put the 4-door on your list. And if you're shopping for a Prius, I would say definitely put the 5-door on your list. We're going to get very similar fuel economy by all accounts, and I think it is even better looking than that all-new sexy Prius. See all of you later.